Where do you think the Trump administration is 6 months in with respect to the issues that you and working men and women of the Teamsters care about?
Well, he's definitely taken some criticism from a lot of other unions because, he's trying to do a smaller government, which is going to require layoffs. So he's taken some heat from there. But as far as the Teamsters union goes, he's been good with us. I mean, obviously, we went down and weighed in on the Secretary of Labor. We were able to lobby for her. Her dad's a retired Teamster. We've had some issues that come up that could have affected our members. We were able to go to the White House and go to his staff and talk to them and explain that, this would be detrimental. We've done a lot of good work with him. The criticism is it's Trump, and every time, no matter what he does, good or bad, you've got the far left attacking him, you've got the far right attacking him. And look, the reality of it is he's made some great moves, I think, with the tariffs, especially trying to bring back industry. And people forget that a lot of these bad trade deals were made by Democrats that we all supported.
All right, guys, I hope you had a great weekend. I know I did. Not a lot accomplished, admittedly, but it was beautiful weather here. I was on the water a lot. It was great. Family, friends, the whole thing. And it's funny, on Mondays, I already start looking forward to the week. I've got to start slowing down and enjoying the days more. But anyway, I digress. Trump crossed the 6-month mark yesterday of his second term. And boy, the White House put out a ton. I want to play for you really quick this Jake Tapper clip, because when CNN gets it, everybody gets it. Take a look.
Hello, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, where the state of our union is thinking, wow, a lot can happen in just 6 months. Today marks half a year since President Trump took office again. And already his second term is shaping up to be even more consequential than his first. The president has followed through on promises to ramp up deportations, impose tariffs, target his political enemies, including the news media, reduce the federal bureaucracy, and slash U.S. aid to foreign countries.
He's right on some of it, but you get the point, is that when he talks about how consequential it is, he's absolutely right. I mean, you think about this. The White House sent out this fact sheet yesterday, and I'll just read you some of it. Congress passed the one big, beautiful bill. Congress passed President Trump's resistance package. That's all those $9 billion cuts to NPR and USAID. The wholesale price of eggs is down 53%. The U.S. economy has added a net of 671,000 jobs since January. U.S. and Custom Border Patrol encountered just 6,070 illegal migrants at the southern border in June, setting a new record. The administration has ramped up deportations, breaking a record for the number of deportation flights in June. At the president's direction, U.S. Immigration and Customs have conducted over 2,700 members of the vicious Trendeo Aragua, whatever it's called, gang. Sorry, I can't say that right on a Monday. Inflation has just tracked at 2.1 since he took office, levels not seen since the first Trump administration. Summer gas prices reached their lowest point since 2021. And so listen, it goes on and on. You think about trade. All the things that even Jake Tapper had to admit, these deals foreign policy-wise that have occurred. The Democratic Republic of Congo as a pathway for stability with Syria. The deal that he has struck going after Iran and making them less of a threat to the U.S. It's all of these things over and over again. The Golden Dome. I mean, do you realize, by the way, and one thing that got completely unnoticed, in last month, the U.S. government, for the first time in over a decade, had a surplus. A surplus, folks. That's a big deal, and yet no one talked about it. We got a big show coming your way. Sean O'Brien, the president of the Teamsters, is going to give us his analysis of the Trump administration. And then Penny Nance from Concerned Women for America is going to talk a little bit about where we are with the cultural agenda. So much to happening. But there's one other big thing that happened over the weekend that I wanted to make sure I flagged for you. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, was on television talking about her review of the whole Clapper-Brennan look at Russia hoax. And take a listen to what she said to Maria Bartiromo, because it's critical. Take a look.
In the months leading up to the November 2016 election, the intelligence community agreed that there was no intelligence that reflected that Russia was trying to hack the election in favor of either candidate. The evidence showed, the intelligence showed that, again, Russia did not have either the intent nor the capability to be able to impact the outcome of the United States election. So it was very striking when we look back again at the documents that I declassified and released that shows there was a shift in early December, the first week of December, again, another document was produced by the intelligence community, a president's daily brief that was consistent with every other assessment that was done previously leading up to the election. Russia did not, this is after the election now, did not attempt to affect the outcome of the American election. That was never published. Hours before it would have gone into President Obama's President's Daily Brief, it was pulled by a senior level intelligence official saying that they had to pull it because they had received new guidance. The very next day, this meeting was called, a National Security Council meeting, bring together all of the senior leaders of President Obama's cabinet, and the topic that was put forward was a sensitive matter. The tasks that came out of that meeting was coming from President Obama directing the intelligence community, then Obama's ODNI director Clapper, to produce a document, to produce an intelligence assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow affected the outcome of the election that had already occurred, electing Donald Trump to the presidency.
You understand how big this is. Think about how much money and time and the narrative surrounding Russia, Russia, Russia. We're finding out now that this may not have been anywhere near true. We know, I was there was no collusion. But now we're hearing that maybe this was a setup against Donald Trump. Here's the point that I would make, and I want to give Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire credit for this. If you're going to talk about this, let's roll. Let's go. Refer that to the DOJ. But saying it is creating another Epstein situation. Don't get me fired up because I had to go through the Mueller committee, so this is personal to me, and then let me down. I know a lot of people feel like that's what happened with Epstein. So if you're going to roll this out and say that this was all manufactured to set Donald Trump up and it was more than just bad staffing and bureaucracy, then let's go get him. Let's hold people accountable. But don't get my hopes up again and do nothing. Let's go get justice. All right, guys. Huge show coming up. Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters is going to give us his grade. Remember, he spoke at the RNC, and the Democrats did not like that. And then Penny Nance from Concerned Women for America is going to join us as well. Will Chamberlain's going to be joining us tomorrow. John Solomon on Wednesday, and then we got a great panel for you on Thursday as well. Before I get to Sean O'Brien, though, I got to tell you guys, I've made the core of a wellness journey is sleep. If you don't get a good night's sleep, it doesn't matter. You can get rid of all the red dyes and the ultra-processed foods and the plastics and all that. If you are not getting a good night's sleep, it's all for naught. And I will tell you, I made a change in my nightly routine almost a year ago now. I started taking Beam's Dream Powder. Now, I've told you before, I've got all the different flavors. This is the coconut cinnamon one, not the coconut, the cinnamon cocoa. All their flavors. I've tried the brownie, the peppermint. They're all amazing. This one is my favorite. Everyone loves one kid more than the other. That's a fact. And I love the cinnamon cocoa one. It has got all the things that I've tried in the past, different ways, melatonin, reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, reishi, all of it in one amazing flavor. If you try this, you're literally going to say you were not kidding. I take one scoop, I put it in water. I know I'm talking to some of the folks out there. You've told me that you like the milk. I don't really care. I put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, and when my head hits the pillow 30 minutes later, I get the best night's sleep. Here's the deal, though. Beam is giving my listeners right now the ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off. So if you want this all-natural, great tasting sleep aid, and I'm telling you, wake up feeling refreshed, ready to go, you want to do this right now. Go to shopbeam.com, shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code word Spicer for up to 40% off. You will sleep better, wake up stronger, support a great American company, and invest in yourself. Shopbeam.com/Spicer, code word Spicer. All right, we got a great show coming up. Before we do that, I got a great guy to tell you about. You know who I'm talking about, my buddy Leo Grillo. I've gotten to know Leo now over the 2 years, the 500 episodes. I think he's been with us since the beginning. And I love Leo's story. He rescued this Doberman, named him Delta, dedication for everlasting love to animals. That's why he named it Delta. But what started with one dog has become a mission. Delta Rescue is the world's largest no-kill sanctuary, not a shelter. I've learned this from Leo. If you go to deltarescue.org, you'll see the videos. I'm telling you, if you are an animal lover, dogs, cats, horses, I don't really care. You will fall in love with the work that Leo Grillo is doing. It's amazing. He rescues everything and cares for it for life. Malnutrition, abused, abandoned. Leo Grillo does it all at Delta Rescue. but there are no grants. There's no government grant. There's no USAID funding. It's all because of me and you. I have made a personal donation to Leo and the work of Delta Rescue. Go to deltarescue.org. Join me in supporting their amazing work. And you can hit that estate planning kit and think about maybe making it part of your estate if you got an old 401k or stock around. Please go to deltarescue.org to learn more about the organization and the great work that they're doing. Without any further ado, I want to bring in the General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the man from Boston, Mr. Sean O'Brien. Sean, good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It's an honor and privilege.
Well, we got the Sean thing in common, at least. And you spell it the right.
We spell it the right way.
That's what I'm saying. I know. I say that all the time. Let me just say this at the outset. You are probably the most unique union head I've ever met. I look at your podcast, some of the people, like, is this, I don't know. Maybe it's just growing up in New England. I got a view of who a union boss is, and you're out there talking to John Voight. You had Justine Bateman on your podcast. You're walking the street. Is this who you've always been, and we just didn't know Sean O'Brien, or is this an attempt to really bring unions into to our households in a way that maybe we haven't seen before?
No, I think it's two things, to be honest with you. It's exactly who I am. I mean, I grew up in Boston. I grew up in a neighborhood, learned a lot of valuable lessons, some not so great lessons. It's who I am. And I try and be as real as possible. The union, as everybody knows, has been in my life for 4 generations. And so two things. Yes, this is exactly who I am. And two, there was such a stereotype of unions, not a good one either, where, we have the opportunity, especially leading, I think, one of the most influential unions in the country, to showcase that we're a lot more sophisticated than we are. Our members are a lot more sophisticated. And I think through the pandemic, we proved how essential we were providing goods and services. So I think it's highlighting exactly what we are, not who we were in the past.
But it's interesting because, to your point, like, I've always, to me, growing up in New England, the unions here were strong, tough, and you're obvious. I saw your exchange with Mark Wayne Mullin, so you got that part going. You got the strong, tough part. But it's sort of like you want to lean in, it appears to me from the outside, into sort of current culture and talk about issues and with people. And so again, is that you, or do you think that's I want to show my members stuff? I mean, what's the goal there?
No, again, it's definitely who I am. I mean, I think everybody should, especially when we're elected to do a job, we should be firing on all cylinders, highlighting the organization, but also giving people options to choose from and talk about issues that normally were never talked about by union leaders. And I think that's important because culture, I think, everybody, especially in light of podcasts, and especially in light of the influence social media has on society, we have to be out there, not just talking about our crafts, but also what's going on in the communities and society. And everybody has a voice, everybody has an opinion. So it's kind of a twofold message, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. I want to talk about politics, and then I want to also get into the future of unions and where they stand in terms of stuff that, I mean, you've been talking about this. So just to give everyone a sense, I want to get your sense on some politics. And then I want to talk about where unions fit in the world of AI and technology to move forward. But currently, we just celebrated yesterday the 6-month anniversary, President Trump in office. You spoke at the RNC, first time a Teamster had done that, and I don't know, ever. And, broken the mold in terms of, I think, trying to reach out to both sides. Where do you think the Trump administration is 6 months in with respect to the issues that you and working men and women of the Teamsters care about?
Well, he's definitely taken some criticism from a lot of other unions because, he's trying to do a smaller government, which is going to require layoffs. So he's taken some heat from there. But as far as the Teamsters union goes, he's been good with us. I mean, obviously, we went down and weighed in on the Secretary of Labor. We were able to lobby for her. Her dad's a retired Teamster. We've had some issues that come up that could have affected our members. We were able to go to the White House and go to his staff and talk to them and explain that, this would be detrimental. So we've done a lot of good work with him. The criticism is it's Trump, and every time, no matter what he does, good or bad, you've got the far left attacking him, you've got the far right attacking him. And look, the reality of it is He's made some great moves, I think, with the tariffs, especially trying to bring back industry. And people forget that a lot of these bad trade deals were made by Democrats that we all supported. And look, I'm all for bringing back work, bringing back industries to the United States from other countries, and rewarding people and creating a real strong middle class. You've got places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, that are thriving and thirsty for this type of work. And I think if these tariffs hold true, we're going to see 7 to 8 years from now a lot of industry return to the United States and providing jobs and opportunities for these people. I know Hollywood, he's committed. We've got 20,000 members. There's probably about 200,000 people that depend upon that industry. He's committed to taxing any production that shoots outside of the United States, which will further create more jobs, indirect jobs as well. So as far as that stuff goes, we're very supportive of that. And look, we could criticize any administration for anything they do, because is everybody going to be flawless? Absolutely not.
It's funny though, because you've called balls and strikes. I've heard you be critical of Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass in LA. First, let me just say, is that in keeping with what your do you think that you're reflecting your members, or is that Sean O'Brien saying, I'm calling balls and strikes personally?
Well, I think I think it's Sean O'Brien definitely calling balls and strikes. Of course, our members are going to disagree, especially if they're in California and they like Gavin Newsom, they like the social priorities he put forth. But when you have wildfires running rampant and you didn't replace the infrastructure because you're trying to protect sea turtles and certain fish, and people are losing their homes, then I think balls and strikes are necessary. And look, when we're in a crisis, and I face many crises every day. I'm not on vacation, or I'm not in another country on a mission. I'm getting home to deal with that crisis and to help my people. So I've been very critical. I've been critical of a lot of people, especially there's a couple Democratic governors, the one from Colorado and Newsom, because they claim to be for working people. They claim to be about creating jobs, but they're the first ones to veto legislation that's going to require human operators in commercial vehicles, which is going to destroy hundreds of thousands of jobs and infrastructure. So I'm being critical because I'm Sean O'Brien, but I'm also being critical because where do we put those 200,000 or 300,000 people that lose their jobs as a result of embracing technology?
One of the things that I've tried to tell people when I get asked, like, what makes Donald Trump unique, is, yeah, he's a billionaire, but he's been in the hospitality industry. He's been in the hotel industry, he's been a builder. And so when I walk through a hotel with him, for example, he engages working men and women in a way that no politician I've ever seen before does, because he's been around them his whole life. He knows what it's like to be on a job site. He knows what it's like to engage in the hospitality industry. And I think that makes him uniquely different because, you can grow up in a certain way. Meaning, like, my dad sold boats for a living, so I know what it's like to live the life of, or to see the life of a salesman, to know the economic ups and downs. But when you actually live the life that Trump has lived, and you're at the job site, you're in the restaurant, you're at the hotel, you're engaging with these men and women, that's very different than being the son of.
Right. I mean, look, the one thing that I think people cannot deny, whether you like him or not, is he's got a tremendous work ethic. He works 20 hours a day. And to your point, he engages with every single person, whether you're the janitor or the CEO. There's no doubt that he is a true politician, but he's also, to your point, he grew up in New York. New York was primary blue collar. He had to deal with a lot of unions. And look, he was, people will say, well, he was born on third base. Yeah, he was born on third base, but he has worked very hard. He has embraced working people. You see this election. Now, people can disagree because there's certain layoffs going on and people are always going to be critical. But at the end of the day, he's a regular guy. I mean, you have a conversation with him. It's not just scripted or a robot. He is talking, and I have many conversations with him. And, we throw F-bombs back and forth about certain things. And, I think he's unique in that perspective as well.
When I started in politics, I dealt with the Teamsters, a guy named Chuck Harpel. He was the political director. And
I know Chuck real well.
And I worked for a guy named Frank Lobiando. He was in New Jersey, South New Jersey, from a trucking company. So we had a great relationship with the Teamsters. And I always just tell people, when I did this campaign, I'd pick up the phone, I'd call one of the locals, and I'd say, we need 50 guys wearing jackets at the corner of Main and 2nd. They were like, what time? I'd be like, 5 o'clock. They'd be like, we'll be there 4:59. These guys, I was like, I used to tell my Republican buddies, if you ever get the chance to run a campaign with union support, it's like nothing you've ever seen before. Because normally you're scraping down, going, hey, Johnny, could you help us for like 5 minutes, put up some signs? When you get union support, it's like a whole change. But I always got the sense, and I want you to disabuse me of this, that they dealt with us because they knew that we would win, right? In other words, they'll play with Republicans that could win, but they'd rather have a Democrat. Under Sean O'Brien's leadership at Teamsters, what's your political philosophy? Would you rather have a friend, or would you rather have the party in power?
Look, at first, I'd rather have friends that are going to actually have a connection and a true commitment to get things done, number one. Number two, and I've said this publicly many times, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. If you are going to champion issues for working people, whether you're union or not union, it's going to improve everybody's lives. We want to support you. Far too long, we've been making investments because, to your point, where we historically have embraced Democrats. Well, Democrats have been in power the last 16 out of 20 years. And when you really look at what we've gotten as a result of our return on investment, whether it's sweat equity, standing on corners, and or investing with our political PACs, the scorecard doesn't reflect the ultimate goals for us, and the objectives is to get things done on behalf of working people. So short answer is we're going to support. We want friends. Friends are important because friends, where I grew up in a neighborhood, you had blind loyalty to your friends, whether they're right or wrong, and they had the same back to you. But also, you want to go with the people that are actually going to be your friends, but also work on behalf of your constituency. And our constituency is working men and women throughout the United States.
We're heading into a midterm election next year. Do you guys care who controls each chamber?
I mean, I think the politicians can really care more than anybody else. I would just like to see people that actually are true to their word and who want to embrace working people's issues. But in the end, Sean, no matter who's in power, and that's the funny thing about what's going on right now, whoever's in power, we've got to deal with it. We've got to find a way to build relationships and get things done. And I tell you, the one valuable lesson I've learned over the last 3 years, because we've been in power for 3 years in the Teamsters Union, is that we can do two things. We can stand on a sideline like most people do and, chant and boo and whatever the case may be, but we want to be engaged in the game. We want to be on that field, and we may not always make the plays we want to, but establishing long-term relationships, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, and not destroying a relationship because you have a disagreement. There's going to be 10 things we may disagree on, but the one thing that we may need, you may embrace, whoever you may be. And that's where we've been focused on, is building these relationships. We don't care who's in there. It's just a matter of...
Yeah, but don't you think, look, if Republicans are in charge, they control the agenda. They control the committees. They control what bills move. I mean, look, I got to be honest. Like, I get it. I'm all for friends. I got plenty of friends on the Democratic side, but right. Every day of the week, I want a Republican majority.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not structured that way. You want a Republican majority because that's what you are. You're a Republican, right?
Yeah.
I'm a Democrat, but I don't lean far left and I don't lean far right. I'm moderate, but I'm a realist at the end of the day. And what we've been doing, developing relationships with Roger Marshall, with Josh Hawley, with a lot of Republican senators, I think that's important because those same constituents, regardless of whether they have an R or a D, are my members that are going to vote for those people. So, it doesn't really matter to me at all. It really doesn't.
There was this narrative going around for a while that there was a disconnect, not with the Teamsters, but with labor at large, between the labor leaders in Washington and the rank and file members. Do you think that's accurate?
I think it is to a point, because I'll tell you why. And this is where we had some controversy when we didn't endorse. Everybody was endorsing. When I say everybody, majority of labor unions, international labor unions, endorsed Biden like January of 24 or whatever it was, right? And we said, we can't endorse because we haven't talked to our members. We haven't polled our members. We want to know where they're at. So, and I have a lot of friends that are heads of international unions. And the one thing we did differently So we did significant polling, 3 polls. One, the most important one was a QR code that went out to 1.3 million members of ours, and it came back 65% were voting Republican. And then we did a scientific poll using the Harris Waltz pollsters, and then the results were still consistent. So, do I know whether they talk to their members or not? I don't know that. All I can speak for is the Teamsters Union, 1.3 million members, and 65% of our members were voting Republican. Now, everybody said, well, why didn't you endorse Trump? Well, we still have 35% of our members that have a voice that wanted to endorse Democrats. And we're like, look, we've got to, as a general executive board, we've got to be transparent. And, the best thing for us is to stay out of this because we've got to serve both constituencies within our union.
So, as you said, you're a Democrat. You grew up in Boston, which is sort of like it comes with your birth certificate.
Yeah, pretty much.
Red Sox, Patriots, Democrat.
Bad attitude as well.
Yeah, a little bit of piss and vinegar. Yeah, I get that. But here's the thing. When you look at the landscape going forward right now, I do wonder how that plays out when it comes to, you're a guy that, I used to tell people I got in a car after the election. This Uber driver, he's got NPR. He tells me he lives in Bethesda and he's in an EV. And I go, oh, crap, this is not going to go well. And he starts telling me how much he's praising Steve Bannon. I'm like, what's going on in the world? And so right now you got Sean O'Brien from Boston, longtime Teamster, 4 generations, Democrat by birth, and speaks at the RNC, doesn't get invited to the DNC. What is the view among Democratic leaders of how you where you stand with them?
Well, there was definitely a ton of criticism. I mean, there's no doubt. Chuck Schumer's of the world. He's not. I'm not even on his radar screen. There's some vindictiveness, I believe. I mean, they had some DSA people make a hard run at me.
What's DSA?
Democratic Social Activists.
Oh, wow.
Right. And, and that's all well and good. I mean, we've got big shoulders. But my point, the good thing about when people get upset with you, especially the Democratic leaders, and I got a lot of friends that are Democrats as well that were like, hey, I don't even know why they're not asking you to speak at the DNC.
Yeah.
Because I would have gave the same exact speech that I gave at the RNC. But, people can be upset. But I'll tell you what, when people are showing their true colors and attacking because of you standing up for the majority of your membership and you standing up and trying to get your message out there, but it wasn't the forum that the Democratic leadership wanted, then you know what? You got some soul searching to do, in my opinion. There's a reason why 65% of working men and women are not towing the Democratic line. And instead of pointing your finger at people like Sean O'Brien and other people, why don't take a step back, look in the mirror and say, what can I be doing different as a Democratic leader that would make this shift in working people who we've had for the last 20 years? Why did we lose them? There's got to be a reason. It's not Sean O'Brien. It's not the Teamsters Union. It's what's going on. It's the attitude inside, the Senate and the House. So, look, they can be mad, but, the reality of it is, we're pretty valuable to society in the United States. They can be mad at me, but don't take it out on my members.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen the value in a campaign, and if I were a Dem, I'd be careful. Do you think one of the other sort of observations that I have found is that there's a big difference between public unions and private unions? You represent men and women that are driving trucks, that are on the line every day, that are working for actual companies that have a bottom line. And then you got a lot of these public unions that represent public employees. I think, at least the way I view unions, is that there is a different divide between how public unions operate and address concerns and how private unions like yours deal with things.
Well, I think there's two things. Just set the record straight. We represent everybody from airline pilots to zookeepers, 1.3 million members. Our second largest constituency in the Teamsters Union is public sector, believe it or not.
Really?
Really, yes. And that's
like
what
who?
people don't.
Like when you say represent, like is it people who drive a truck but for the government?
No, it could be DPW workers, school administrators. We have school nurses. We have water treatment facilities. We've got a ton, probably close to like 130,000 public sector attorneys. The University of California, the majority of all those folks in the maintenance department, and in many different departments are all Teamsters. So that's our second largest unit. But, to your point, there's a lot of, public sector unions out there that are a lot different than the Teamsters and, how we do business. A lot of public sector unions don't have the right to strike. In the private sector where we have the right to strike, it's very effective. It's a last resort, always. But, public employees are very important. But I think some of the narrative, especially in this election, coming from the Democrats, where they made this whole election a social justice platform, where the majority of our members were more concerned, and I think even in the public sector, of more money in their pockets. Inflation was creeping up. The cost of goods and services were expensive. The price of homes are expensive. And so I think our folks were just looking for, ways to get more money in their paychecks, be able to afford universities and tuitions for their kids. And the social justice issues, they're important. But that's our job, to negotiate the strongest contracts, whether in the private sector or public sector, that will help negate against some of those social issues.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at, though, and I didn't. It's great that you learn these things when you have these conversations, but I feel like there's a different posture. I always feel like when I walk into somewhere in a government building and they go, oh well, they're union, so they're not doing anything. You guys are much more attuned, I think. Well, the private sector guys, I think, are much more attuned to market forces. They have to understand that that company doesn't make a profit. You can't pay your worker a better wage, so you've got it. There's more of a balance, I think, in my opinion, on how private unions operate, because you need the company to succeed. Whereas in government, I always feel like the cop-out is, well, what are they going to do? Close the, department? Right.
Yeah, there's definitely a different distinction. I mean, when you're dealing with a private company, especially if they're public, right? You've got, the problem is when you're dealing with private companies, a lot of times they're more concerned about bottom line of their balance sheet and how Wall Street is going to view them. Yeah. Our job is to negotiate the strongest contract based upon what their earnings are. And it's a great opportunity for us because we know what companies are doing. We know how much they're making. We know what their stock prices are. So we have an advantage over what the public sector unions don't have. And you know what the funny part is? When you do a deep dive in a lot of these publicly traded companies, even in private equity as well, a lot of times, most of their investments in their financing come from union pension funds, both public and private. So, that's a lot more of the sophistication I was talking about earlier, where we've got tremendous leverage because of our members, because of, the investments we make on behalf of investing pension fund money into a lot of these Fortune 500 companies. So it's a whole different dynamic. I mean, public sector is dependent upon what the budget is and what's allocated for them. But I'll say this, Sean, whatever the perception is of public sector workers, they're extremely important and valuable to communities, regardless of what people say. We've got a lot of talented people, a lot of talented members that are public sector employees.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say is I've worked in and out of government a lot during my life, and I agree. There's plenty of people I've met that I think are in it for the right reasons. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that aren't. But I want to go to the big, beautiful bill that passed. In an initial draft, there was an AI provision that would have put a moratorium on every state blocking AI automation over the next decade. You were very public in opposition to this. Can you explain to me what the concern of you, the Teamsters, and labor overall is to a provision like that?
Well, I mean, look, the reality of it is AI is extremely, extremely scary. It can replace hundreds of thousands of jobs within the workforce, not just unionized workforce, but every workforce. And if we're letting the federal government control what states do as far as regulations and not having a voice for the next 10 years, that's extremely disturbing and scary for us. Now, we know technology's coming. We know that it's a necessity, but we also know there's an ability to create jobs as a result of technology. You see all these drones, you see this thirst for technology, but it has to be regulated by states. Each state's different. I mean, you look at California, Governor Newsom's bought and paid for by tech, right? So he would give the store away just to, get himself another podcast or to get an attaboy from technology. But The reality of it is there's a lot of opportunities to create jobs. And if we didn't push back on that provision of the big, beautiful bill, then we would be more vulnerable than we already are. And we just got to continue to have these conversations with these politicians and these policymakers to find ways to create jobs. I'll give you a perfect example. In the grocery warehouse, where that's our third largest constituency in the union. Everybody likes automated warehouses, but what we did is, we didn't embrace the automation, but we worked with the companies like at Kroger and different places where they're implementing it, and found ways to create jobs as a result of this technology. Where we're net zero on job losses in a lot of these situations, where our members now are programming these robots. Our members are maintaining these robots. So again, it's just like anything else. If you want to sit in the sideline and create and complain about it, then you're not going to be getting anything fixed. If you're going to be in the game, pushing back, giving true testimonials to what actually can be done to serve both the implementation of technology, but also the preservation of good middle class jobs, we'll do that all day long. That's the way it should be.
At the beginning of the year, there was this online debate about H-1B visas. And I'll simplify the debate, but basically people like Steve Bannon have said to me, the problem with H-1Bs is we're copping out at America and Americans' workforce, meaning we're just importing people instead of investing in U.S. citizens that could eventually do the job, right? So we should be investing in their education. We should be trying to create that worker. And as you look forward to the future, whether it's AI or whatever, there's a debate in the country on immigration and visas and who we should let in or not. And I'm fascinated by this debate because there's a group of people in America, especially among workers in agriculture, not necessarily, and again, I've learned a lot more about the Teamsters just in the last 20 minutes, so who knows, maybe you do represent a lot of these folks. But one of the arguments that a lot of people make, Sean, is Americans don't want these jobs. And I've pushed back on a lot of people, and I was having this conversation over the weekend with a buddy of mine from Pennsylvania. And I said, is that true, or are we just not paying them enough and we're not giving them enough benefits? And my buddy looks at me and he goes, dude, I worked in a factory 25 years ago. My shift manager made $100 and something thousand. He goes, he hated the job every day. He told me this and that. And I said, so you're telling me if you didn't pay him 150, he wouldn't like, and he said, no. He said, people didn't want these jobs in the first place and they were begrudgingly. Tell me what your argument is. Do people really want to go out there and pick strawberries in the field? And is it just a question of cost? Is it in each of these areas? So many people say Americans would do them if the pay and benefits was better. And yet, as I said this weekend, a buddy of mine who came from a union background said, dude, it's not the money. They just don't want to do the job.
I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I think it's like anything else. The more someone gets paid and the more respect that they're paid personally to do a job that's very difficult, I think that we've got plenty of people that would do that job. We represent agricultural workers in California and other states. When people are making a lot of money and there is a pathway to a career with pensions and healthcare, I think people do that job. I mean, you look at the rubbish industry. It's the second most dangerous job in the world. And our members make great money, 130, 140,000 with full benefits. Now, you could argue and say, people don't want to do that job, but they're doing it because it pays so well and they're represented by the union. So I think there's a lot of, misconception about that. But, there's no doubt that we did have a huge immigration problem in this country, especially with illegal people coming over to commit violent crimes and sell drugs and basically just terrorize the United States. Those people should not be allowed here. I mean, I think on a white collar level, think about just the area where we're from, right, Sean? You're from Rhode Island. I'm from Boston. We have the most talented colleges and universities that produce the most talent in this country. There's no reason why we shouldn't be utilizing a lot of those folks and embracing them and encouraging them and making it a little bit easier for people to get into these colleges and universities. I mean, the criteria right now, if you're from Boston, you can't go to Boston College. They're not accepting anybody from Boston.
By the way, if you're from Rhode Island, you have a hard time getting into.
Yeah, so it's insane. But there's a lot of talent in this country. And there's a lot of talent that, needs to be embraced, paid accordingly. And I think that would solve a lot of these problems. I mean, are there situations where HB visas are necessary? I guess. But, let's invest in the people that are already here first.
So if you had to give, President Trump, they passed the big, beautiful bill. You guys won on your AI argument. What is it that if you could tell the White House, here are the 3 things that you should focus on now that you passed the big, beautiful bill, what would they be from your standpoint?
Well, my standpoint would be focus on passing the Josh Hawley, Cory Booker bill, the Bigger, Faster Labor Standards Contract, which is basically a version of the PRO Act with a kind of a more streamlined, which would allow workers to organize without any retribution, retaliation, to be mandates for an employer to sit down and negotiate. And then if you come to impasse, there's a dispute resolution process, which will be binding arbitration. So I think that for working people is something that should be embraced by both Republicans and Democrats, and that should be atop of the agenda. And just making certain that whatever we're doing, we're bringing industry back to this country. I think those are the 2 most important things: bring industry back and invest in trade schools, because not enough is being said about the folks that don't have the opportunity to go to college, don't have the opportunity to get, 6-figure jobs. There should be an investment in trade schools where encouraging these kids to go to the trade schools and a path to a career, not just a path to a job.
Yeah. Last thing I want to ask you is this. And I don't mean this to come off the wrong way, but I feel like one of the things, you talk about growing up. When I grew up in here, my dad would be like, go do this, this, and this. And if you see a problem, you fix it. There has always been this view among some people, right or wrong, and this is why I want you to explain it, that when you get too many unions involved, it's, hey, sorry, my job is to put that light bulb in, not move that table. And people go, the problem with unions is you create bureaucracy, nothing gets done. When I grew up, my dad said, you see something on the ground, you pick it up. You see a thing there, a nail, hammer that needs to put that nail in, you go do it. There is a belief among some that when you bring the unions in, you create more bureaucracy. Fair or not?
No, not fair at all. I mean, you look at the building trades, right? Building trades is a great organization. They everybody knows their jurisdiction. Everybody knows what their responsibilities are when they go on these projects. And it's a proven fact that projects are done on time, under budget for the most part. Jurisdictional disputes do happen, but they don't slow the job down. They don't weigh it down. There's a mechanism to resolve any of those jurisdictional problems. And one of the biggest things is project labor agreements. Project labor agreements are signed by unions before they do a project, which means it'll be 100% union. Everybody knows their role at that point in time. Everybody knows that the job, what needs to happen on that job. So that's a misconception. That's just some negativity being thrown out, probably most likely from, the non-union ABC building trades and all these anti-union far right people that don't care about working people. All they care about the bottom line of the balance sheet. But I'd debate that any day with anybody.
All right. Well, I've seen you debate, and I'm not sure I'd want to have that with you.
No.
All right. Sean O'Brien, thanks for being with us. Go Sox.
Sean, thank you so much. I appreciate you as well.
Yvette.
Thank you.
All right. Amazing conversation with Sean O'Brien. I want to now welcome in Penny Nance, Concerned Women for America, to give us an insight as to where we're going culturally. Penny Nance. Penny, welcome back to the show. I know one of the things that I keep getting annoyed at is this. We keep talking about Jeffrey Epstein. I think too many people are focused on who's on the list, and as opposed to why they're on the list, meaning these people did bad things.
You are 100% right. And internally, that's the thing we have really said is, of course, we want to know who's on the list. But there's a more important list, Sean, that no one's talking about except you and I today. And that's the thousands, hundreds of thousands of children that are missing in this country. We know about 300,000 kids came over the border, and most of them are unaccounted for still in this country during the Biden administration. According to the FBI, we have 460,000 kids who are missing, reported missing each year. The National Center for Missing Exploited Children say 85 million pictures and videos depicting child sexual abuse worldwide come in per year. And then a child goes missing in the United States every 40 seconds. Now, thank God for good law enforcement. Many of those are accounted for. We just had a little girl that went missing this weekend in New York, and they found her dead body. And that is disgusting to me. The problem is we don't even know the entire number. My staff looked far and wide trying to come up. Penny, what is the number? I keep asking, what is the number? And they're like, Penny, we don't know. We can ascertain a number, we can cobble together numbers, but I think that's the first thing that the Trump administration should do at DOJ. Find out who's missing. Let's start with that list and let's work backwards from there.
I don't want to dwell on this, but I just want to ask you a quick question. One of the concerns that I have is that everyone wants everything released, but there are some victims that probably don't want that information released.
That's true.
And so how do we find the balance here?
That is a great question, Sean. I mean, you're right. Some of these people are now adults, and we know that throughout time we keep hearing these stories because these children that are the pornographic pictures that circulate around the internet, these exploited children, they go on for 25 years. And in many cases, they are adults now with their own families, right, and they don't want to be identified. So there has to be respect for the victims, but also have to be a real effort to catch predators.
I know you see Concerned Women for America and you we're talking about the issue of men and women's sports before anybody else did. You guys have been at the forefront of that issue, calling it out. And I know you've got an analysis and a report coming out later this week about the effects of this. Tell me what you guys are going to talk about later this week.
Well, I think it's really important that we looked also at the victims of the women who lost their gold medals. And that's not all medals because the number would be much larger, but just gold medals in this country since young men started participating in their sports activities. And we know that almost 2,000 women lost medals, about a $500,000 in prize money that they missed out on. And so it's just incredible that and there were, out of that was 10,000 events, over 10,000 events in which young men participated. Now, Sean, thank you so much for giving us credit where credit's due. We're sorry to be right about this, but I had conversations with reporters in which I said, young women are going to be hurt. They're going to have men in their locker rooms. They're going to miss prize money. They're going to miss scholarships, all the things. And they practically laughed in my face and like, oh, this will never happen. I said, ask the other side if that's not what they want to happen. And of course, that conversation never happened. But here we are, all these years later, and we have all the stories. We have the receipts. We have young women who are members of Young Women for America who are in the lawsuit because they had to change in front of men, a violation of their Title IX abilities to be safe sexually, and on it goes. Yeah. So this is a mess. We've got to deal with it straight on.
It's funny. The left always says stuff like that, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I don't know why you guys care about this. It's not that many. And you just gave us the reason. And guys, I just got to tell you, for 45 years, Concerned Women for America has been doing exactly this, leading the charge on cultural issues, getting results, informing us, warning lawmakers about bad policies, and getting results so that they don't happen. I got to ask you guys, if you love the work that Penny Nance and the Concerned Women for America are doing, for a $20 donation, you can get Penny's book, A Woman's Guide, 7 Rules for Success in Business and Life, and help support the work that they're doing. Maybe you want to help start a chapter, get involved in your community, but this is how we can make a difference in this country when we're facing the cultural wars. And yeah, moms, I'm talking to you because you see this more than anybody else. Do me a favor, go to concernedwomen.org/Spicer, concernedwomen.org/Spicer, and help Penny Nance in the work that they're doing. Penny, thanks for being with us again.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
All right, guys, great show. Thanks for tuning in. Always go to SeanSpicer.com to sign up for my latest newsletter. We got a great show coming your way the rest of this week, so hit that button. Join us for the premiere every night at 6 o'clock on YouTube as you can. Go to Spotify, Apple, leave us a 5-star review. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.